Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to session 4 of 4 keys to a better night's sleep. I'm Coach Bobby G, and if you've been joining us this week, you've gotten a chance to learn a little bit of how to improve your night's sleep. In our first session, you heard about the importance of a routine and how a routine can help you in establishing some signals for your body to know it's time to go to sleep. And in the second session, you learned the importance of the environment, your sleep environment, and how the look, the sound, and the feel of your sleeping quarters can really have a profound impact on the quality of your sleep. Now, if I hadn't made it clearer in previous sessions, one of the things I want you to keep in mind is that this idea of a routine and the environment in which you spend sleeping is part of what we call sleep hygiene. And it's very important that you consider those things. And we want to have good hygiene. We want to have good hygiene when we're not sleeping. So we would want to have good hygiene when we're sleeping as well. All right. And then in our previous session, session 3, you heard about how you could get a better night's sleep after one session of this series, actually. And I think in the future, I think I'll put it first, because as soon as you invest in getting some, not intense, but some moderately intense exercise, strength training, maybe in particular, you got a little challenge, you'll probably sleep a little bit better that evening, right? And we want you to have a better night's sleep. All right, now tonight, boy, this session, hopefully I'll be able to do it in fewer than 30 minutes because I have a lot of information to share, but I think I figured out how to just get through it. And then maybe at another time, or if you're in the Facebook group, you want to ask questions, you're welcome to do that. And by the way, if you're not on Facebook, or if you are on Facebook, that group is the After 50 Wellness Community. You're welcome to join. Just a few questions that I asked you to answer as you're coming in, and then you're welcome to be a part of our community. And you can ask your questions there if you don't. And as I go through this evening, if you have some questions that mind in the chat, or we can have some questions at the end. All right, so food, good sleep. That's what we're going to talk about this evening. So I want to set my remarks. Basically, here's the framework. I'm going to talk about ingredients or nutrients that you want to be looking for in food. And then I'll give you some examples of those foods as we go along. And I'm going to give you 5 important nutrients that you want to be looking for. And I'll give you some recommendations. And then I'm going to also talk about some foods that aren't so good for you. So I'll balance it out today. We'll get some things that are really good to help promote your sleep. And then I'll talk about some of those that are not so good. And then we'll be dialing everything down after that. Okay, so when it comes to a good night's sleep, the best foods have these following ingredients. The first is melatonin. Now, melatonin is a hormone that regulates your body clock. And it tells you not only when it's time to lay down, but it also lets you know when it's time to get up. And as another effect, another benefit, it's an antioxidant, it's anti-inflammatory, and it helps boost your immunity. Now, another ingredient that you will find that is very beneficial for your sleep is nutrient, but yeah, sometimes it's listed as an ingredient. That is calcium. Calcium is very important because it helps produce and to use tryptophan, and we'll talk about tryptophan in a little bit. And then it's also important because in making the tryptophan, it then helps make sure that we have plenty of melatonin. So those work together in the body, and calcium helps control how long we sleep. And we might even say Yes. How long we sleep. How long we sleep. I was getting ahead of myself. I wanted to use another description, but it helps control how long we sleep. So foods rich in calcium will be good to consider. The third ingredient, the third nutrient that I want you to consider as you think about the kinds of foods that you eat, the third one is magnesium. Magnesium. Now, one of the nice things about magnesium is a natural relaxant, and if you are deficient in magnesium, it can be linked to insomnia. Be careful on that, thinking about that. It activates what we refer to as the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the nervous system, or the system that is responsible for calming and soothing you. And it helps regulate melatonin. It's important. It binds to the GABA receptors. That's GABA aminobutyric acid. Woo! And GABA is responsible for calming nerve activity, calming down or quieting down nerve activity. All right. The next thing I want you to be looking for when it comes to your food is potassium, right? So you've heard about melatonin, and then calcium, magnesium, and now potassium. Potassium is important for you in your sleep. Interesting phrase that you may not hear very often. Potassium helps you with your sleep efficiency. So let's talk about that just for a moment. If you've never heard the term sleep efficiency, let me help you understand what it means. Basically, how good are you at sleeping, or how consistent are you at sleeping, or how much time are you actually asleep compared to the amount of time that you might be in bed. For example, if you went to bed at 10 and you got out of bed at 6, okay, that's elapsed 8 hours. And if you heard me in a previous episode, when it comes to your routine, you heard me suggest that those hours before midnight count as 2. But for the point of this particular example in terms of sleep efficiency, we're going to take it as 10 to 6, but you're going into the bed at 10 and you're getting out of the bed at 6. But let's say you fall asleep by 11. Maybe you toss and turn, you're thinking about things. You don't get to sleep till about 11. And somewhere around 5 o'clock in the morning, you wake up and you lay there staring at the ceiling until 6 o'clock. And then your alarm goes off and you get out of bed. So you were really asleep for 6 of those 8 hours. Well, if we do a little bit of math, 6 divided by 8, and then we times it times 100, and we get the percentage, right? And that is 75%, I think, right? 75% of our time in bed was spent asleep. So your sleep efficiency would be 75%. Well, we don't want it that low, actually. We want it in the 85 to 90%. So if you're getting down into that 75, 70%, we might think there's some issues going on with your sleep. So, but that's where potassium can come in, and it can help with your sleep efficiency. It helps reduce muscle spasms, for example, and muscle contractions. All right. So melatonin and potassium and calcium and magnesium. All right. So that's the first 4. And then the 5th one, tryptophan. Now, if you're a person who enjoys turkey on Thanksgiving Day, you may have experienced a tryptophan coma. And if you have, then you understand how tryptophan can help you with your sleep. Tryptophan is an essential amino acid. So that means we have to get it from our diet. So it's involved also in making serotonin, which can become, in some situations, melatonin. Tryptophan can affect your mood and your behavior, your appetite, your sleep, and your memory. So tryptophan is quite important. So those 5 nutrients, melatonin, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and tryptophan, are the things you want to be looking for. You want to be looking for foods that are rich in those particular hormones, or there's nutrients, whatever you want to say there. So let's go back and talk about what are good examples for melatonin, for example. All right, so I will pick one category for this evening, but there's lots of categories. One of the categories, maybe two, we'll see how much time we have. One of the categories are nuts. Nuts are really good when it comes to providing melatonin in your diet. I would recommend that you look at walnuts, almonds, and pistachios. So of those three, walnuts probably have the least amount. Almonds are somewhere in the middle, and pistachios, they are the star when it comes to nuts and melatonin. They're the star when it comes to nuts and melatonin. So if you are thinking about your supper and you want to maybe include a handful of pistachios, that might be a good way to improve the amount of melatonin in your diet. All right, so that's just, I'll give you that example. There's so much to go through here. I won't go through all of all these different these options here. Now, the next thing I want to the next element, the next nutrient, the next, yes, element will be fine. Calcium, right? We talked about calcium. And for calcium, I think I will choose seeds. I will choose seeds as the category that I talk about. But there are beans and veggies that are really good, but I'm going to go with the seeds and talk about 5 good options of the seed category that would help you promote calcium in your diet. We'll start from the lowest to the highest, right? In terms of per 100-gram serving. Sunflower seeds, all right, they're at the bottom of this list that I'm giving you here. Sesame seeds. All right, so some of you like to sprinkle sesame seeds in your salad. I know I sometimes do that, or sometimes I put it in my, excuse me, in my oatmeal in the morning, if I have some sprouted sesame seeds. Flaxseed, there you go. Flaxseed is a good example of a seed that has calcium. And then mustard seed, but make sure you check to see how the process is. That might vary how much calcium is available. And then chia. Chia is the star by far. It's more than twice what's in flaxseed in terms of calcium. So chia seeds for me are a regular in my oatmeal in the morning. I put in the day servings or so, a serving of chia in my oats and then my plant milk, and then I warm it up and it does fine. I've also used chia in making blueberry jam for the first time recently. So chias can be really good for a lot of things, but indeed, what I'm saying there is that chia would have a lot of calcium to help control how long you sleep, right? That's the seed category. And again, there's veggies and beans that I would mention if we have more time to do that. All right, now, when it comes to magnesium, make sure I have my notes right here. When it comes to magnesium, here are some, I think I will go with let's see. I haven't done a lot of, I haven't done bean section yet, so I'll do beans up for this one. Beans are the magnesium section, but seeds are really where there's a lot of magnesium. So I'll do beans and seeds, bonus. All right, so when it comes to your beans, lentils, that's maybe my third choice of the list I'm giving you today. And then kidney beans would be my second choice to give you. And then black beans. Black beans would be high on the list, providing magnesium, adding magnesium into your diet. You heard me mention seeds previously. Seeds, well, let's see. Here we go. On the lower end of magnesium, adding magnesium to your diet, sesame, right? So sesame gets another mention. Flaxseed gets another mention. Chia seeds, flaxseed and chia seeds, they're about the same when it comes to magnesium. And the star of the seed category when it comes to magnesium is pumpkin seeds. There you go. I'm not myself, I don't use pumpkin seeds as much. But this is a good reminder to me that I want to be looking at pumpkin seeds to see how I can add them into my diet. All right, let's see. The fourth mineral, the fourth nutrient is potassium that you heard me mention earlier. And as a reminder, potassium helps with your sleep efficiency, right? So we want potassium in our diet to help us sleep consistently all the way through once our eyes close. All right. So for this category, I'm going to go with the vegetables, with the veg category. I'm going to give you 6 veg that are pretty high in potassium. We'll start with the bottom of the list again, zucchini. Zucchini would be a good source of potassium for you. Squash. And, you know, I didn't make a note as to which kind of squash that is, but I'm saying squash and give all squashes the benefit of the doubt. If you're a bamboo shoots kind of a person, bamboo is there as well. Eggplant is in that list. Eggplant is a good source of potassium. Swiss chard, that's not something I consume a lot of, but you may enjoy it. Swiss chard is there. Spinach is getting up there with quite a bit of potassium per serving, but the star of the veg category when it comes to potassium is seaweed. And I have not really eaten a lot of seaweed, but dried seaweed is by far the highest veg that is adds potassium to your diet. So think about that. How can you add seaweed into your diet? Final category of nutrients, hormones, and so forth that you want to be looking out for are those that are tryptophan. Now, you heard me mention turkey earlier, and yes, indeed, lean beef, poultry, tuna, they are very high in tryptophan. But I have a plant priority kind of mindset. I think that we could do better in our diets if we add more plants. So I highlight those plants that are, I highlight mostly the plant sources of those nutrients so that you balance out if you happen to be a person who likes to eat animal protein. All right, so in this category, I will feature the grains and I will also feature the seeds. The grains are the cereals that you might be already eating, but maybe think about, oh, I can use this strategically if I'm having a challenge. Barley would be at the bottom of my short list. Quinoa, I actually had there's a friend of mine has a restaurant here in town, and it's a salad-based restaurant, and quinoa is part of the Baja Bowl that I had yesterday. Rye grain, I don't actually use a lot of rye grain myself, but rye is a very good source of tryptophan, plant source. Buckwheat groats, for those of you who are familiar with those. But my favorite, and I usually have it every day, oats. Oats are the star of the grain group when it comes to tryptophan. So make sure you're including that. And then I will also mention the seeds, names that you've heard, but maybe I'll slip in one that you maybe haven't heard yet. So flaxseed at the bottom of my short list of 5 seeds. Pumpkin seeds would be next on the list, moving up. Hemp seed. I haven't said hemp seed. You haven't heard me say hemp yet. Hemp seeds sneak in there and they can provide, be a good source of tryptophan for your diet. Sesame seed, and then the star of the seed category when it comes to tryptophan is, you guessed it, chia seeds. You guessed it. Good job. So those are food sources that you want to be including in your diet. Now comes the bad news or the sad news, depending on how you like to appreciate this or look at it. I'm going to share with you a list of some foods that you probably want to avoid if you're having concerns about your sleep. Now, you might want to avoid them anyway, but now, the foods that are not so good for you might be any of the sugary chocolates. And dark chocolate is probably not as sweet, not as sugary, right? But chocolate, it's high in sugar, of course, which is not good for us in terms of our sleep. Saturated fats, fats, and it would give us, it would promote less of a deep sleep. And some chocolate has caffeine in it, of course, and I'll talk talk a little bit more about caffeine in a little bit, but chocolate might be something to avoid if you're getting ready for sleep. All right. Now, for those of you who are fans of the burger, a bacon hamburger is high in fat, fried and fatty food. It's a high in fat food. You want to avoid that as you are thinking about sleep. Now, chicken, for some reason, I made a note about chicken, and I don't know why. Protein and carbs together. This doesn't make sense to me now, so I'm going to pass on that. But pizza, I am going to continue with. Pizza is a very addicting food. It's one of the most addicting foods by survey that they've done research on. Cheese, it's high in fat, and tomato sauce can be very acidic and then make your sleep disruptive. Ice cream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream, right? Ice cream, dairy, high fat, high sugar, not so good for your sleep. Cereal and milk, you might have some dairy fat that gets in the way of your sleep. Of course, the sugar. Celery, interesting. Celery can be a diuretic. So that you might be getting up a little bit more often than you want to get up. Pasta, it's a simple carb, and that simple carb will turn to sugar, and then that won't be so good for your sleep. Really spicy food, hot peppers, they can elevate your body temperature. If you were with us in session 2, you heard that our bodies like to sleep in the 60s, in the mid 60s, and your body will warm the sheets around you. So the body does give off heat, and that's a good thing. But if it's too warm, you'll be sweating, right? And that will be disruptive to your sleep, may be disrupting to your sleep. And if you're too cold, you'll shiver, and that may be disrupting to your sleep. So hot peppers may not be a good choice. The final one that you'll hear me talk about this evening is coffee and alcohol, but I'll just talk about coffee briefly in a little bit more detail. Those two can be disruptive to your sleep. You heard me talk about this in our first session where we talked about our routine. And one of the things I suggested is that you stop any caffeine consumption about noon. And the reason I suggested that is because caffeine can be the most disruptive to your sleep within the first hour, but it has a half-life of 4 to 6 hours. So if you were going to go to sleep at 10, it could your caffeine at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It might be done, but it might not be. So depending on your particular physiology. So noon is a good way to kind of think of it. Maybe at lunch, you'll have an iced tea or something, and then that's it for the day. Caffeine, biologically, caffeine blocks adenosine receptors in the brain. And now adenosine is the chemical that is a chemical that is sleep promoting. So caffeine is blocking the brain from receiving any adenosine that's in there. And then what that does then is it interferes with your circadian melatonin production. And so it delays your onset of sleep, because then when all these melatonin's coming out, but then, hey, I can't get to where it needs to get to. Adenosine's like, the receptors aren't seeing the adenosine, then you don't feel sleepy, then you don't get to sleep. Not good. All right. So make sure that if you're going to have anything that's caffeinated, particularly coffee, that's a morning thing if you're going to do that. And remember, in the third session, you heard me talk about how to know that you have gotten a good night's sleep. It's if you wake up in the morning and you don't feel you need coffee. Need is the operative word, right? Need is the operative word. All right. Well, as you can see, there are many ways that you can improve your diet improve your sleep by improving your diet. I would certainly hope that it's this been very helpful for you in terms of hearing some things you might say, oh, okay, well, I like chia seeds, so maybe I'll start to make sure included, or I like pumpkin seeds, or maybe I'll add pumpkin seeds to my salad, and that will help me. There are some lettuce types. I think arugula is really good. I can't remember what it's for, but it's on my list, and let me go back and find that. Arugula is good for, there you are, it's good for calcium, right? So if you're putting arugula in your salad and you throw some pumpkin seeds on top of that, yeah, you've got some good things going there, right, to improve your sleep. All righty. Well, that brings me to the close of this session and actually this week's series. I hope you found it beneficial. And at this time, if you have any questions, I would certainly be willing to entertain them if you have them. So I will take a moment to hear any questions you may or may not have. And if not, then I will. I have one person here today, so I will. I can pause the recording and we can chat for a bit. All righty. Thanks so much for joining me in this series. And if you have registered for it, then you'll get an email with links to all the recordings. As if you were here last night, you heard that I made a glitch, and so I have to re-record last night's presentation. So it may be a little bit, but next week for sure, look for an email for that. All righty. Thank you. I'll stop the recording now.